Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Razoo Learns AFK Journey. It's been a while, so essentially we made it through most of the first part of the season and are now roughly coming to the end of the second part of the season. And today I want to talk about the artifacts. And the reason for that is because this week we got the final artifact of the season, which is this lovely Guardian spell. And now we have the complete set and we can have a look at what these things do because, well, as you see, these are quite a lot, and deciding which one you want to use is actually a bit challenging because I personally cannot memorize everything of these. So you have to have like a bit of a rule of thumb, which ones are good, which one are bad, in which situation do I take this one or the other, and what do all these stat boosts do? I don't know. Yeah, so let's go through that and have a bit of a perspective on how I use them and what these things actually do. And let's first start with this Lightcall Spell, which is currently at 25, which is the cap at the moment. So in the third part of the season, we're gonna get it up to 30, I think. Is it 30? Yes, there's 30, yeah. Okay, but now currently it's at 25, and this is a good time to review it. So what does the Lightcall Spell do? So as it says here, and you can see this in the very small text below, so it basically at start of battle summons two Fays. So these are two little butterflies flying around your Merlin figure. And it will actually resummon these things every 8 seconds. Yeah, so every 8 seconds you get new ones if you consume one. So when do you consume one? So if your hero's HP drops below 60%. So essentially, if you're really close to the danger zone, which is the part when, at 50%, some of the mechanics hit that make damage go up. So shortly before that, one Fae can come in and heal that hero for 12% of the complete team attack for 5 seconds. Okay, so 12% is not the final number, because if you scroll down, you see that I'm currently at 22% of the team ATK. So what does this actually mean? Like, how much healing is this? 22% of the team attack. Okay, so you can go and check what the attack numbers for your different teammates were. So I've got Paragon 2 here and Paragon 1. So let's take a Paragon 1. Let's go maybe for S+, because more people have that. So if I get, for example, to Alsa and have a look at her attack. So I see her attack is roughly at 1 billion. Okay, so if I go up to P1, then let's have a look at Nara, not that one. Oh, I hate that. So this thing is so small. And it's around about 1 million, a bit less. Yeah, okay, so what else do we have? Let's go for a P2. So Assassin, so she better has a lot of attack. So 1 million roundabout. So if you go on like that and look through the different characters, you're going to see that attack is roundabout 1 billion up to 1.6, I think. So roundabout 1.1, 1.2 for my current setup, which is P1, P2. Okay, so that means 22% of that. So if you have 5 units and you have, like, let's say 11, like 1.1 billion, you have like 55 billion team attack. 22%, I did the math before, is around about 12.1 million. Okay, that's a lot, right? For 5 seconds. Well, but how does it compare to other healers? Is this as much as other healers do? And, well, let's have a look. Let's take Haven, which is a very solid healer. I think she's one of the highest heal outputs, if I remember correctly. So let's have a look at her healing power. So Haven, like, this is the ultimate, that thing that heals the whole arena. Yeah, heals all allies for 120%. Yeah, so heals 120% of her own attack for 9 seconds. Okay, what is her own attack? So her own attack is 900 million. So if you do the math now, you will see that this roundabout sums up to the same healing that we see from the artifact. Is also around about 1.2 billion over 9 seconds here. But here in this case is for 5 seconds. So essentially what you get here is a mini Haven. Yeah, so you get like 2 times, like for 2 heroes, you get healing. That is quite substantial. However, It's only 2. Yeah, so if you have, for example, some AoE like, where is my Tazi or my Talene? Yeah, so if you got these 2 buggers against you, where's my Tazi? Probably up here, yeah. They can do quite a lot of damage to all enemies, or to all your units. So this will not keep up with that. Yeah, so you can do that to heal like singular damage, or even like if you call Chimera. Yeah, if Chimera goes on a team, this thing will not heal Chimera's damage. However, like if you don't have, like if you have slower damage dealers, then this can actually do some of your healing or extend it. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. So, so another thing is like every 8 seconds, a maximum of 4 phase can be activated at once. So essentially, if you don't get any damage that put you below 60% in the first 8 seconds of the game, you have 4 phase, so you could cope a bit for AoE damage, a bit. Yeah. So at least one unit would not be able to be healed, but you must not drop below 60%. So that's pretty cool. Yeah, but actually rarely used, because normally like you have these little, you drop below 60 pretty quickly, and then you try to heal, but the unit dies anyways, because like it goes from 100 to 60 to 0 like that, yeah, in some cases. So if you have something like that, this thing will not help. If you have long prolonging battles, this is interesting. And this can be even more interesting, because if we go to 30 to level 30, this thing will have an extra effect. So this thing will actually do damage. It will create 1 Shadow Fae that goes to a hero below 70%, and will the healing, as that we've previously seen, as damage to that hero. That's amazing. Yeah, so essentially you can get like a tick, an additional damage tick from that thing, which might be interesting in certain situations. I don't know if it's really interesting for bosses, maybe lesser ones, but can be interesting. Okay, Lightcall Spell. Currently, I have to say, I don't use it much, sometimes in AFK stages. Not so much anymore, as the last artifact now just dropped, and this one is, I think, a bit better if you need to sustain, but still solid. Okay, so now come for the Dragonroar Spell, which is one of the spells that you normally see in Arena. Oh, I didn't talk about one thing before we start here, and that is the stats bonus. Yeah, so here you see that the Lightcall Spell gives us an attack of 14, which is not the highest, but also not bad. It gives us 21% extra HP and Vitality, which is essentially the effectiveness of heals and shields on your unit. So you can get better healing out of that. So this is really like, if you have a problem with healing, like your healing is not enough, doesn't get through, this thing might be interesting. And it also gives you a bit of attack, which is good because your team attack rises. So, Dragonroar Spell, now we start. So, Dragonroar Spell has more ATKs, you see, it's like 16 instead of 14. It also has a bit more HP, and it has 7 haste, which is not shabby, but it's not the strongest. So, but it's important because you get a bit quicker, and this is something that you should look at. So this is one of the, I think it's 3 or is it 4 artifacts that have haste. So interesting, because haste is one of the stats that you want to have. So ideally what you would like to have is attack, defense, haste. If you have got these 3, perfect. HP is also fine, but I personally like defense a bit better, because like you want to flatten out the spikes of damage. So, okay, what does it do? Calls out the Might of Dragons, la la la, 6 seconds into battle and every 12 seconds afterwards. So this thing just do nothing for the first 6 seconds. In Arena, this can be crucial. So if you have, if you can battle against a burst team, this thing is not precisely helpful, because after 6 seconds, your team might already be below 50%. Sorry for you, you're almost dead. And every 12 seconds afterwards means like you get 6 seconds, then another 6 seconds, and then it's 12 seconds later, right? So the first 2 come a bit quicker, and then it gets slower. So yeah, either you are dead at the second incarnation, or you made it. Yeah. Okay, so also the blessing only holds for 6 seconds. So blessing increases attack and damage reduction by 50%. which is cool. So essentially, you get less damage, you do more damage. And at the highest point, 34% more damage and 20% less damage taken. Unless you have someone with true damage, then yeah, sorry for you, this doesn't hold. So at 30, which we will see in the third part of the season, the Might of Dragon also intimidates the enemy. Yeah, casting this spell reduces all enemies' attack speed by 35 for 6 seconds. This again is cool, but keep in mind that this happens after 6 seconds. So if you've got a Chimera buffed to a point where she casts her ultimate after 5 seconds, sorry, that doesn't do anything. So you cannot slow down Chimera with that. So let's have a look if that is even possible. So let's have a look at Chimera. Let's have a look at her ultimate. And her ultimate takes 300 and has a cooldown of 0. Yeah, so essentially you need to be quicker than her getting 300 energy, which is a bit hard to predict. Yeah, so if you're at 300 energy, sadly, cannot say anything. So, but again, 6 seconds. So often used in arena, but you shouldn't try to use that against some quick team. Yeah, so you need to have the first 6 seconds covered, and then you go on with that. Okay, Shadowblast Spell. Now this is more or less the opposite. So first off, it increases HP, it increases defense penetration for whatever that is, and execution by 14. So execution I can explain. Execution is simple. So if you go into the execution range, which means like a unit goes below 50% health, then execution does 1% more damage for each point. So essentially, if a unit goes on below 50%, this spell gives you 14% more damage, which is pretty nice because, as we'll see, you want to finish off enemies quickly. Yeah, so this is all targeted at speed units. So this is also why you see this in arena quite often, but you need a team that is really, really quick. Defense penetration is something of these stats where I think like you could have gone with less, but let's have a look at that later. So what does it do? Unleashes a blast of shadow energy on the one frontmost enemy 2 seconds into battle and every 7 seconds afterwards. So tick, tick, buff. That's quick. The blast deals damage equal to 75% of team attack and stuns the affected enemy for 2 seconds. So essentially, as normally the tank is front, you're gonna stun the tank for 2 seconds, which will normally just slow them down, but not much. If an affected enemy's current HP is below 10% and less than 80% of team ATK, they are instantly defeated. So, affected enemy. So, what is an affected enemy? So, in that sense, as far as I read it, or as I got it from the German translation, that read like the whole group. But I think the blast deals damage and stuns the affected enemy. Okay, so you see, it will only target the frontmost enemy. So essentially, you can use this to quickly kill the tank. Yeah. So like less than 80% of the team ATK, or this go up. So this is like 100%. So you see, if the health is below one, like what I said, I say 5.5 million. Yeah. So I did the math that this can be as high as 30% of the enemy's HP, but there's the sentence is both below 10% and less than 80%. So essentially, if the health of the tank goes below 10%, boom, done, killed. So this is a tank killer. Or if you have another unit in front that is a bit more squishy, yeah, that unit is also killed, but only the frontmost enemy. So what do we gain at 30? After casting this spell 3 times during a battle, it will target the 2 frontmost enemies. Okay. So, okay, how does this work? So normally you see this, as I said, in units that do quick damage. So for example, if you have a Sylvina or a Nara or Vala or whatever. Yeah? So all these unit killer targets. Yeah. So these normally use this because you do very quick damage. You bring them below 50%, then you do a lot more damage. And if it's a tank, it will also like die instantly. Yeah, so this is also pretty cool. I've also seen that being used in Chimera teams quite a lot, but to be honest, I think there's better artifacts. Yeah, I mean, for Chimera, it's interesting because like execution is definitely good for her because she does a lot of damage and units quickly go below 50% and then you can gain the extra execution stats. But there's still better ones because you have to first get her to cast the ultimate. Yeah, and that takes some time. Good. So, for execution teams. Now comes one of the things that are good for Chimera. This is actually my now second most Chimera artifact because I think it's pretty much tailored towards her and towards what's his name, the Harry Potter guy, or Snape guy. Snape is actually more fitting. Here, Siren. So Siren is also a good fit for this artifact. Let me explain. So first off, it increases 80k. Defense and haste. Bingo! This is all three stats that you want to have. So this thing is amazing in terms of stats. So even if you have Siren in the other team who will basically null the effect of this spell, the stats will still hold. Yeah, so even if this is annulated, or the effects are annulated, you gain a lot of that. 70% is so far the highest attack. 36 is not the highest defense, but still high, and almost 10 haste, which is also quite a lot. Yeah, so this is cool. You're quicker, you're more resilient, and you do more damage. Cool. So, and now it comes to the text. And this one is actually interesting to read. When a battle starts, creates a magic sigil beneath the rearmost ally. So, that said, rearmost on the standard AFK map means the bottom right. Yeah, because the numbers go from front to back, from left to right. So this means if you only have, let's say, one talent tile on the lower left, this is not where you have the rearmost units usually. It's on the tile on the right, which doesn't have the buff unless you have both tiles buffed. Yeah, so you have to be a bit careful and you have to really take care that the unit you want to affect by this is really the rearmost unit. Be careful. While standing on the sigil, the ally becomes unaffected. So, little trick here. Unaffected means that any kind of moving, Nara, Iron, whatsoever, will not work. Any kind of stunning will not work. And this is pretty cool at the beginning of the battle, because, for example, if you put Chimera on that thing, she will not be affected by Iron, which is amazing because you can basically protect her from damage. And this is a good Chimera protector. This is also good for Siren for the same reason. So, but she will move away from the sigil, which we will cover in a second. So, because if you're standing on the sigil, you gain 35 haste on top of the 10 haste above, yeah, and 15% damage reduction. So faster, less damage. Whoa, cool. Now, when the ally leaves the sigil, these bonuses are lost for 3 seconds before the sigil enters again. And this is what you're going to see with Chimera, because Chimera doesn't have the longest attack range. So she will normally move away from the sigil and relocate. And then after 3 seconds, you see this thing popping up again below her. So she will glow yellow as far as I remember. This is a bit unfortunate. Yeah, because you need to place her in a place where she at best doesn't move. If you also try to combine that with, for example, Eugen, good luck. That normally never works. Yeah, so you have to expect that she will move in the first 3 seconds. So this is essentially only effective against Iron. So if the sigil remains active for 10 consecutive seconds, the haste bonus is further increased to 50. So if she doesn't move for 10 seconds, Godspeed, yeah? Fast like crazy. Also, it's also why Siren is interesting for that, because Siren will usually stay where he is, which is amazing, yeah? And you cannot even move him. So this is pretty good. So, and the bonus goes up to 75 haste. And 75 haste is almost very close to twice as fast. Because as far as I remember, a haste bonus of 100 means you do all your casts in half the time. So this is amazing, yeah? Caster on the back. So what unlocks at 30? If the magic sigil remains active for 20 seconds, so even longer, converts 35% of the affected ally's damage dealt to true damage. Good lord, if you have that thing on Chimera, she will fry the boss. Yeah, so another boss killing artifact if you have Chimera in the team. So Coreforge Spell is pretty good if you need to protect a single caster, a strong caster in the backline. There, it's brilliant, and I used it quite a lot. This is, I think, one of the most used artifacts that are in this season. Okay, so from the most used to the least used, Bloodrage Spell. Yeah. It is essentially the counterst thing to Coreforge in a way, because it targets the frontmost unit. But let's go through that. So you'd gain attack like 21, which is even more than the Coreforge spell, which is, I mean, this is targeted at melee units, so let's look at that. Attack speed, higher, life drain, +9. So you can also see life drain normally is good for melee units. So essentially, this is something you want to see on melee units because, yeah, they get a lot of damage as they are frontmost, so life drain will constantly heal them. So attack speed, also quite good. Not as good as haste, but still, so more attack means more energy, means more boom. So when the battle starts, grants Blood Frenzy to the frontmost hero, okay, for the entire battle. Yeah, so if that buddy dies, sorry, done. Increases the Frenzy's attack speed by 55, so a lot, and life drain by 30, a lot, but reduces the energy gain by 60%. Now this is a bit offsetted by the attack speed, yeah, but if you have a unit that relies a lot on ultimate, not that good. The Frenzy ally also becomes unaffected for the first 12 seconds. So also a thing that can prevent you from being moved by iron. So let's go to the current stats. So attack speed 85 and 45. Yeah, so basically you get more speed and more life drain, but your energy is down. So what kind of units are useful for that? So if you have a tank that you really need to reach the other side, cool. Yeah, I cannot think of anything except you're going up against iron and want to pinpoint something. So for example, if you have iron against iron, this might work, but I never did that. If you have a unit that doesn't really rely on energy and ultimate, but does still a lot of damage, I actually don't know. So that is actually my thing. I didn't know a lot of units that don't rely on ultimates that much. So probably there is some smaller units that are good for this, but as I said, I didn't use that much. Yeah, so actually a good thing for me to find out which unit might actually benefit from that. So I think, I would personally think that it might be Seth, could be, but he at least has to get alt once. Soren maybe. Interesting question. Yeah, but again, I never use this. I haven't also seen that in AFK stages, so yeah, sorry, this is a useless thing. Okay, or at least for me. So if you run like close range combat units, then maybe. Okay, Vilespring Spell. This is, I would wish it would be better, but I use it relatively often. So it has attack 30%, so not much, but okay. High defense, so that is why I like it. It has a high defense. So for AFK stages, if you get a lot of damage in, so this thing would be an interesting thing to take because you get less. And it has a high haste, so low damage, so damage reduction, faster, and a bit more attack. So not bad. So if you have to sustain and do damage, good thing. Every time Alice casts 6 ultimates, which is actually quite a lot, summons a corrupted fountain that covers the enemy side of the battlefield for 6 seconds. So you will see a bit of water on the other side that is like the color of this lovely thing up here. Yeah? So it's green bluish. You cannot miss this. This is pretty obvious if it comes. And have the vitality reduced by 60, so they get less healing. Their attack reduced by 30%, which is a lot, and lose HP equal to 2.2% of the team ATK every seconds. This effect cannot directly defeat enemies. Yeah, so, but I mean, if their health is low and you have at least one damage dealer up, okay. So, and it will increase up with HP loss per second to 4.2%. Okay, at 30, this one is summoned every time at least casts 5 ultimates, so quicker. So 5 ultimates is actually quite a lot. Yeah, because, I mean, Shamira is very quick in casting ultimate. Also, what's her name? My favorite, yeah. Here. Alsa is also good for that. But there is not a lot of units that do a lot of ultimates. Like if you have, for example, at the beginning of battle, if you've got Iron, ultimate number 1, then you probably have Lily May, ultimate number 2, and yeah, then you have to see that the others come. Yeah, so 6 is actually takes surprisingly long sometimes. Yeah, so you have to have a very good team constellation, but reduces attack, HP, and so on. So this is actually interesting in AFK stages because they are normally quite overpowered. And if you reduce their attack, then yeah, they normally hit less hard. The problem is if you are in one of these stages where they hit hard, you normally don't make it to 6 ultimates. In boss fights, this can also be interesting. Yeah. So I actually like it, but it's a bit flat. Yeah, so I would like to have this a bit earlier, like 4 ultimates or a bit less. So it should trigger more often, then this would be really good, but it's a bit hard to trigger. But then, not a bad thing. Then we come to the Stormlash Spell, which I did not use a lot yet, but it currently shows up in the world boss. So this is apparently currently the best artifact for the world boss, and I was a bit surprised by that. Yeah, attack increased by 16 or almost 17%, which is not the highest one. Yeah, but for example, here it's 17%, and this was I think the previous one that was used for the boss. Yeah, 21% here, but the other stats are not that good. So, and you have a higher defense. So very high defense compared to Vilespring, almost the same. So good defense. And execution, below 50%, more damage. And I think this is the part where it gets interesting for bosses. Like if you go below 50%, like for example for the world boss, you will have that for a long time. Also, for the guild boss, for example, if you hit the guild boss at below 50%, this might make a difference. I haven't tested this, but every time you have a boss that takes a bit longer and is below 50%, you can get execution boni from the start. And this is a high execution level, like 20% more damage. Come on. So, unleashes chain lighting at the nearest enemy every 7 seconds, dealing magic equal to 70% of the team attack. This is getting higher. The lightning then bounces 3 times and gets reduced by 20% each bounce. So first one, boom, and then less and less. And we're currently at 120% of the team attack, which is quite a lot actually. At 30, after casting this spell 4 times, or gaining 1 assist or defeat with it, chain lightning damage becomes true damage and no longer decreases with each bounce. Okay, this is boss killer. So, so to every 7 seconds, and this thing 4 times. So if you make it to 4 times 7, so 28 seconds. It is not half of the battle, but like still a lot. Then you will gain true damage. So this could really be interesting for boss fights. And now I get it why they use it for the world boss. Fun fact, if the world boss is not below 50%, this will probably do less damage than this one then. Okay, so interesting thing. In stages, due to the damage reduction, probably not that interesting. I haven't seen that. But again, defense, cool thing. Elderbow. So this is the thing that you're going to see a lot in Arena. So I think this is one of the most used spells because, yeah, if you have the classic Chimera Bonnie team, then this is already a given. So this is one of 2 spells. This one is targeted at ranged units. The other one is targeted at melee units. So let's have a look at the ranged unit one. So now, it gives attack, 14% attack speed. I'm not happy. I would like to have haste, but yeah, you get attack speed and HP. Okay, no defense, but I guess it would be too powerful then. So, and now let's have a look. Whenever the allies actual cumulative range damage dealt reaches 650%, fires a power arrow targeting a 3-tile, la la la. The arrow deals magic damage of 50%. In its path, knocking the back by 1 tile. This is interesting. Affected enemies take 45 more range damage for the next 6 seconds, unstackable. Okay, first off, if you have used that, you might have seen this bow like firing like bam, 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 bam. So 650% of team attack can come quite quickly in AFK stages. Yeah, because like if you have Shemira on auto fire and Bonnie with her ticking, this is getting up really quick and you see this thing firing a lot. And now comes the thing. You have this 1-tile knockback. And I've repeatedly seen this making a difference in AFK stages. Yeah, because if you have this quick fire rate, they normally don't even reach your team. Yeah, because they constantly get knocked back. And this is pretty cool. And this is why this is used in this team a lot, because it's like basically keeping you away. So if you have a ranged team against a melee team, this is a very good artifact to use. Yeah, because melee teams will basically be kept at bay. And yeah, this is pretty solid. So at 30, the arrow also immobilized the enemy for 3 seconds. So yeah, this is even better. Yeah, so essentially that means the enemy gets knocked back, cannot move for 3 seconds. I mean, can still cast. That is the downside of that, but they cannot move. So essentially this thing can really hold the melee enemies at bay, which is good if you have the corresponding enemy team. So, yeah, very widely used spell, especially as like the Shemira Bonnie combo is so often used. But it should essentially work for any kind of team where you have range damage. And like we currently have a lot of magic range damage all over the place. So melee is a bit, is not that common. Yeah, so most of the spells are ranged. Yeah, so that is why this one is used. And if you have melee units, then you go for the Bladering Spell. So pretty good. Actually, one of the things you can check in first and look where you can go from there. Bladering, same thing, but for melee units. Now this one has heist. I mean, could they have swapped that? I mean, attack speed would be cool here and heist would have been cool here, but yeah, bother. Okay, attack 90%. Again, this is not shabby, but where was our, yeah, 21 is the highest, so I think the second highest. More heist, so quicker, life drain, good for melee units. And that's also why I prefer this one over this one. It has more life drain even. So same as with the Elderbow, if the melee damage reaches 650%, summons a ring of blades around themselves. So essentially, you get like this little thorn ring around, or blade ring around your heroes, and it will, like if you do it correctly, it will stay there and do damage. After a short delay, like thank you, could you just state what a short delay is? But I guess it's a second or so. The Ring of Blade deals physical damage equal to 40% of the team attack, which is quite a lot, 40%, come on, to all adjacent enemies. So you need enemies inside the enemy, you need your units inside the enemy bulk for this to work. So again, melee, yeah, and reduces their defense by 22%, can stack up to 3 times, so 66%, which is a lot. Yeah, so if you do that correctly, you have a couple of units that you send in, and then you have something in the back that does a lot of damage. Yeah, so for example, I've seen that in combination with Talene. So Talene in the back with one healer, Ludo for example, and then you have some melees in the front trying to keep the group occupied. Yeah. So, and then this thing procs. Then Talene comes, and as the defense is low, Talene will just roast them very, very quickly. Yeah, so pretty cool combination that you can go there, but the problem is we don't have a lot of good melee units currently. So that's why this is not seen as often as the Elderbow. Also seen in boss fights, by the way, yeah, because yeah, I guess because you lower the defense of the boss, and that's good. Good. Now we're coming to the newest artifacts, and we're almost through, and this video is really long. I'm sorry for that, but we have so many artifacts. Good. Shieldnova, pretty new and rarely used. So, charges this spell whenever the enemy shields take damage. Each time, at least total shield value reaches 750% of team attack. Unleashes a massive explosion that deals physical damage equal to 80% of the team attack, which is massive, to all enemies. So basically it's an AoE. Yeah. If an ally shield expires at full duration, the shield's remaining value also contributes to charging the spell and is counted as 40% more than the same amount of shield loss. So essentially what you need is shield is. We have quite a few. Yeah. So you have Eugen, you have Velara, you have Corin, you have what's her name? I always have to look that up. Yeah, Tendra, of course, also has a shield. Here. Scarlita, if you still use her, she has also pretty good shields. And yeah, of course, yeah, and Daemon. Yeah. So if you have one of these or two of these, the more the better. Then you can use this. Yeah. So essentially, what you want to do is you want to shield up your team as much as possible, and then these shields should gain the damage or timeout. Yeah, and with that you're gonna get this Nova Spell, which can like come like boom, boom, boom sometimes, and then you have a bit of damage. How much? 130% of team attack, which is also not shabby. So if you go there, increase the spell damage by 35% each time it is cast, stacking about 3 times. So okay, that's 3 times. Okay, that's over 100%. Ooh, nice. Yeah. So yeah, essentially what I've seen this being used for is like if you have AFK stages where you get a lot of damage, you want shields, yeah, so that you don't die too quickly. So, and you can combine that with the Shieldnova Spell, so essentially like you get this Nova through. However, in AFK stages, the Nova doesn't do that much damage. I haven't seen this in use in the arena so much. Maybe an interesting idea to do that, but yeah, I think it's pretty hard to do a shielded team in the arena. But yeah, maybe it does more there. So, however, this thing has 50% defense, which is, I think, the highest value. Is it? Let's check. Yeah, it's the highest value you can get. So essentially, yeah, if you need a lot of defense in terms of shielding and want to get something out of the shields, then you can use that. As I said, I rarely use that. Maybe in AFK stages, but in arena, I haven't seen a combination yet that does it. So, but we're getting more shielders, so maybe this will get more interesting later. Malison Spell has attack, HP, and crit. I personally don't like crit because it's too random for me and too unpredictable, but well, here we have it. You get more HP and you have 10% attack, which is I think the lowest. Yeah. So, and now it comes to the thing. I've seen this being used a lot with Chimera teams, but I question a bit if that is the right decision. So let's go through that. At the start of the battle and every 10 seconds thereafter, cast 1 or 2 curses in alternating order. So first curse, second curse, first curse, second curse every 10 seconds. So let's say normally battles are arena battles are over after 20 at latest, so you get to tick this twice, yeah, or 3 times in that case. So first you have this Sapping Curse. Targets the frontmost hero, normally tank, reducing the HP by 30%. Okay, for 6 seconds. The reduction cannot exceed 200% of the team attack. Okay, yeah, but we have seen that team attack can easily go to 30% of HP. So if you're P1, P2, okay. And their physical defense, magic defense by 45%. So essentially the tank gets weaker. So you want to kill the tank, cool thing. After 10 seconds, which is already long into the battle for arena terms, targets the farthest, so the backmost enemy, reducing the attack speed by 70, attack speed, not haste, and their attack range by 2 tiles. Okay, which is pretty cool if the rearmost one is Chimera, because you get her a run, give her a run. But 10 seconds, come on. If Chimera has not altered by then, the enemy is doing something wrong. 2 tiles for 6 seconds, the range cannot be reduced to 1 tile. Yeah, okay. Yeah, can be good, but I don't know. And yeah, the duration is increased. And the 30 unlock is 2 casts at the same time, the first 2 and the backmost 2. Yeah, I honestly, like, why would Pikachu set that? To kill the tank? I mean, we have already a tank killer, which is here, which has the initial execution stats. Yeah, the defense goes lower, so if you have a really pesty tank like Thorin, might help. But 10 seconds is a bit slow for Arena. Yeah, so yeah, if you desperately need to kill the tank, yes. But if you, I mean, it might even be like that. So in attack scenarios, I can see that, because if you see the frontmost units and the backmost units, you can basically see if that makes sense or not. As a defense, I don't see that, because you don't know how that MT works. Like if you have something, I mean, you could put anything on front that takes this thing and then try to kill everything below 10 seconds. Yeah, so Chimera team against that, bam, gone. Or anything other quick. Yeah, so you could even like take a burst team against that. So I am not a fan of this one. Yeah, maybe clarify in the comments if there is a good use for this, but yeah, so far I like to prefer other things. So we're almost done. Guardian Spell. So this is the latest one and I love it. So this is essentially my go-to AFK stage spell, because it has a lot of haste. It increases healing and HP. So yeah, you get sustained a lot by this. And not even that. When the battle starts, grants the Guardian's Grace to all allies for 8 seconds. So for 8 seconds you get a buff. And this buff is cool. All damage taken reduced by 60, damage dealt also reduced by 60, but if an ally casts the first ultimate during the time, the damage dealt reduction from Guardians is immediately lifted. So the 60% reduction only counts if you don't do an ultimate. Okay, so Iron gets the benefit, but not the downside. You also get an energy gain by 20 per second, 20 energy per second. So Chimera is quicker, so we also have haste. Yeah, so Chimera is quick, you gain additional energy, so even quicker. Yeah, and the recovery even goes up. Yeah, this is really amazing. So you can target yourself against high burst damage, like for example another Iron Chimera team. Yeah, take that like that, and when your first ultimate comes, which is your goal anyways with this setup, yeah, you have no damage reduction at all. Yeah, and you get quicker to this point because more energy, more haste, Godspeed. So this is really, really cool, and I like this a lot. And I actually used this in Arena this season, this week, and I tried to see how it is. I mean, it's not at 20 yet. Let's see if I can get this tomorrow, but yeah, this thing is really brilliant. Now, when it comes to a roundup, there's like a couple of these things that you can use regularly, and others depending on the situation. So Dragonroar, you can use it in Arena. It's not a bad. It's if you don't know what to take this one. This is good. Shadowblast if you have an assassin team. Coreforge, Chimera, yeah, if you want to protect Chimera, or if you want to protect Siren, perfect. Elderbow Spell for ranged units, Bladering Spell for melee units, and Guardian Spell if you really need to sustain that thing, yeah, so, or if you want to protect against the Iron Paw, for example. And the others are taken with a grain of salt, depending on situation, yeah, so it's a bit hard to say, yeah. But I think I talked already a lot, so I hope that helped you a bit, so you get an overview of what these things do and where you can take what. Yeah, and hopefully this will help you a bit with AFK stages or anything else. And for that I say goodbye, thank you for listening, see you next time.